some more Marvel Crisis Protocol. We're doing some painting up. We might do a little bit of light model building. I don't know. I wanted to get to some painting because I feel like I've been promising you guys painting, and we haven't done it in a while. And I just recently cleaned up my painting station, so I'm a little bit more prepared to get that done. And I have my reference all ready to go because we were painting. We were starting to paint this big, rather brawny gentleman, Ebony Maw, also known as Black Dwarf. Not Ebony Maw, Black Dwarf, which is what he's known for, or known as. So I wanted to get, back to painting him. You also notice I had to do a little repair job on Spider-Man because I had a little bit of an issue with him, but you guys can see how I painted up Spider-Man because I don't think I ever showed me in the process, so you guys can see what that model looks like. That's actually from the core set, so you actually get Spider-Man as part of the starter box. But I always found that really cool that they give you main heroes from that. You can see that we also have there Ebony Maw, and I have Doctor Strange, and you may notice Doctor Strange is very prime, so I was able to get a little bit more primer. Hopefully I have more primer on the way, but now all of the stuff that we've built and I've built on the program is primed, so I can paint the rest of my Marvel Crisis Protocol models with the exception of 2 that I haven't built yet. So we have a lot of Marvel Crisis Protocol painting to do, and I'm gonna try to give you guys at least a one themed paint. So we're gonna start picking days. So like tomorrow I want to do Mondays as Games Workshop days. Tuesdays I'd like to do as Marvel Crisis Protocol days. So you'll get 2 for this week because you'll get 2 of them. And then we'll do Mantic. So basically 3 days of painting. And you may get either a gameplay video or something else like a review or an unboxing. I'm going to try to do at least 2 videos a day. 3 I think is pretty advantageous. And I have things to unbox. I have all kinds of different stuff, so it'll be all kinds of different format. But we're going to put out that format moving forward. Then Thursdays will be our normal like RPG or talk show. And then, I'll come up with a wild card for Fridays. But the idea is that we're going to do this consistently for a lot so that we can get through all this painting, because I want to get to actually playing this stuff for you guys and having a more robust channel. So we're going to do it. We're going to stick to it, and we're going to make it happen. Cool. And then hopefully, Friday might be, maybe we'll do like new models on Fridays. So maybe I'll do like new build models or a review of models, something like that. Because we tend to have, that's why. I'm like, why is it not? Let me get this a little closer to me. And hopefully you guys have been liking the addition of this soundtrack while we paint. I've been liking it a lot. Yeah, what am I using to paint with? So I'm using Space Gray for the armor pieces. I'm going to use a lighter gray for the other pieces of armor. So for the highlights, I'll use a lighter gray for that. Just get my brush a little wetter. And like I said, I hope you guys are enjoying the addition of some background music on these videos. I think it's kind of interesting. I know it's, It gives you a little bit more going on when you're painting. And it gives me some music to listen to, which is very calming and soothing. I usually like to listen to some music. I like to listen to usually instrumental music, nothing with like words when I'm painting or drawing. I don't know if you guys are the same way. But you guys are probably getting what's going to happen. So, you know, once we put that lighter tone in there, it's going to look real nice. Very nice. And again, this is Space Wolf Gray, and I'm using the GW contrast paints. I've become a very pretty large fan of them. Because I just like how easy they are to use. I like, you know, like I've told a lot of people, I like to combine them with other paints and traditional GW paints. And I find they work very, very well when you do that. You can really layer and create some really cool effects. Yeah, so we'll leave that. So I like them for that reason. That's all right. I'm gonna paint. I'll paint out this because I'm gonna use some metallics on top of this as well, so that that dot will get the metallic treatment. But you can already see him coming along. He's really like coming to life. I also like the contrast paints for the ability for these guys, because the colors for the contrast are very vibrant, and that works very well with the comic book characters. So you get a very good color choice for like their armor or their costume. So it's very, very nice. And of course, guys, while I'm painting, if you have any questions or comments, and I like to show off the Spider-Man again. I'll give you the proper one because I have the clear on that. The clear. I had the camera on autofocus, but you guys can see, you know, and I'll be fairly honest with everybody. This was literally like using the contrast red, contrast blue, just like slapping on 2 coats and then doing some highlights where I just like put some areas in. But the contrast did most of the work. It got into those grooves, it darkened up. And you can see it did a really nice job. Now what I had to do was his fingers actually broke, so I had to reattach the fingers and then repaint them because he fell off. As I was saying at the beginning of this broadcast, I was redoing my models, my organization in my studio, and he was a casualty because I was trying to get all of my Marvel Crisis Protocol models that I painted in one place. So, and he is, as I said, one of the characters you get with the starter set. So I always, you know, that's one of the things I really love about this game is that they, you know, they very much, right in the starter pack, they give you, you know, a nice assortment of named big level characters. Like they give you like people that you're gonna want and know, versus, you know, not to say that other starter sets like skimp on the characters that are in there, but they sort of do. You know, like they'll give you, and again, you know, to the point of those other games, you know, it may be a mechanic or the game may play differently, but like, you know, for instance, you know, company that comes to mind is like Games Workshop, where, you know, you'll buy an army or you'll buy, you know, more than like start collecting boxes. And I guess like the name implies what the difference is that like they treat their box set they treat their box set like the start collecting boxes like they're not really like an army box. Which, I don't know, I have some problems with that because what you find very quickly, and I may be speaking a little bit more to my Age of Sigmar players with GW, but specifically at Age of Sigmar, you'll start to figure out that, not to say every army has to have named characters, but a lot of armies rely on you having named characters. So it would be nice if they gave you one of those named characters in the start collecting boxes, like as a rule, because then you can actually, like, sort of, because that's sort of the joke. Like, sometimes even with the box sets with Games Workshop, you actually don't have enough to really play a solid, like, version of that force or that army or whatever. So, like, the joke is always, did they even give you what you needed to play? Which I think comes up with some GW players. More so like obviously somebody who is an older veteran player of the game playing with a newer person who just bought the box. So it is a little frustrating that they don't do that. So, like, in Age of Sigmar in particular, you realize pretty quickly that you need, many armies need the actual named characters to work, to actually do what they're supposed to do. So, like, it becomes, you walk away very frustrated, I think. Now, they've got a little better, like, in their box sets. They've now, so if you're buying the, usually the, the box set that's 2 armies or 2 factions in it, they've gotten a little bit better where they are giving you named characters now. They're usually doing those. But then, obviously, what I always bring up with that is the overall arching issue that I have, which is that GW, I think has a little bit of time to, they just charge too much for their stuff. And I get it, like, they are, one could argue, and maybe people would argue about these models as well, which I think you'd actually have a harder time arguing on these. But in other companies' cases, I will say that there can sometimes be a quality difference with the model. But I definitely wouldn't say that with these. These are very, to me, just really great sculpts and great models, and they're very comic book accurate. Like, they look like the characters are supposed to. So, not only is the people at Atomic Mass Games very talented, their model designers that they have there are very talented, but you could tell that, as one would think, with a property that is based on Marvel characters, that Marvel took an interest in what the characters were to look like. So I'm sure, working with Marvel/Disney, they definitely had to submit their designs to them. I'm sure they had to make comments or they had to make comments or concerns about it. I'm sure all of that. And you can see this is one of the reasons I love the contrast paint. So like I layered that so that I could get a nice pooling, because I deliberately did the lighter color first so I could put the darker color on top of it. And what you naturally will see is that it will pool, like where you dab it, it's giving you that nice inlay effect because it's doing that nice darker like ring around it. So if you layer your colors right, you can like save yourself so much time on the back end as a painter. So you can really, it really is, they marketed contrast paints as like the idea that even if you're somebody who doesn't paint maybe as well, or you're new to painting, with contrast paints, you could slap that paint on and very quickly get something that was, tabletop decent in very short amount of time. And what I'm here to tell you is that that's true, but then as you as a painter maybe start to learn some of the principles of painting and you start to get better at painting, not only will the contrast save you time, but then you can even use the contrast in really interesting ways and get really cool effects. So you can start using like the painter tricks that you know, and in some cases specifically that you will gain, looking at the contrast line. And you can get really, really good and enhance what you're already doing, which is the awesome part. And like I said, if you guys are out there watching and you have, even if it's not about Marvel Crisis Protocol, like you have just questions on painting or getting started with painting, I'm just gonna let that dry for a sec. I'm all ears. I'm all here. I love to talk to people who are maybe beginning painters about what is the best course of action. Or if you're trying to paint something, you have a particular project in mind that you're working on, and you're stuck. I love to field those questions, help you out. Trim's going to be that, yeah, so this should be the darker color. A lot of it too comes down to, obviously knowing your paints, knowing your media, is a big part of being successful. But, it's also like knowing, like I did here, like knowing your brushes, knowing, so like there's a couple of, like, to be quite honest, I could have quoted the whole thing in the lighter color, which is an easier way to do it, and then went in and did the black. Because the space gray is going to be so much darker that it will hide. But that's the good. So it is good to do it second. So with contrast paints, if you are somebody who maybe uses other brands of paints, or uses even traditional GW Citadel paints, I always tell people that the secret to contrast is you go the opposite way. You go light to dark rather than dark to light. So when you are using traditional GW paints, you usually go the opposite way, because for most people, because GW Citadel paints are opaque. So you want to layer down the dark, and then you want to put on top of it. It's more like traditional painting, because you paint out dark areas so you can put light on top of it, because it doesn't mix. Although you can do wet mixing on a model. That's another technique that you can 100% learn. And it's funny, I'm doing exactly what I always do. I call myself a mad painter, because I'll start painting one area, and what I try to do with the contrast paints is I try to do, you'll notice I try to do all the same color at once, and that has to do with the drying time. Um, I do that because the drying time for the contrast paints, actually, I'm going to do this with the other brush. If you do it that way, then most of the time, by the time you're done with a color, all of the color will have dried, so I can move in with a different color. Because they say you should let the contrast paint take about 15 minutes to dry. And that's also why for a lot of people when they use contrast paints, they have a tendency to think that they dry. A lot of people will say, oh, well, the contrast paint, it dried. They're very light, but that's because most people don't. They don't do one of two things. They don't put enough of it on. So you'll notice, like for me, there is a little bit of light spots here, and I did that on purpose because I actually do like to put a lighter coat to start, and then you'll see I'm going to go back in and get some of the areas that are there. But the idea is that they were designed so you would layer more and more on top of it to darken it. And so that's why the drying principle is so important, because if you don't let them dry, then you're not getting the true color yet. So like actually you're seeing, I literally just did that, where I went back over that spot to actually make it darker, because I noticed I must have applied like a lighter thing because I was going around with my color as is, and I'm just like trying to find the edges of stuff to give it a nice little embedded look. But you can see already, you know, in no time at all, we're getting like some really nice effects where, you know, that looks, again, all we did was apply a few colors. It already is starting to look like, could I throw this on a table and play with it? 100%. We're going to do more, obviously, to make this look even cooler. But, you know, it just shows how powerful these paints are if you just take a minute to, like, learn a little bit about how they're used. You know? And I say it because I think when they marketed these paints, a lot of people walked away from, I think, you know, what GW was trying to get at with, I don't want to say that these were like savior instant paints, but I think a lot of people kind of did walk away with, like, oh, well, GW just made like a bunch of paints that, like, if I use them, I just like won't have to really paint that much. Like it'll just magically make all of the painting easier, and it will take away like it'll do all of it for me. Like it's this magical paint that just does everything. And that is not that is not entirely accurate for what the paints do. You know, they do give you, I will say, they do give a leg up, like I said, on painting, but they don't just like end all be all. Like, you still have to do some principal painting, like, and not to say that I am by far the world's, like, I'm not going to say I am the best painter, because I'll be honest, I've never, which I've lately been considering it, and I wonder if you guys think I should enter painting competitions, but I haven't. You know, I used to, I wanted to take some time to like craft my stuff a little bit more before I did that, but I was starting to think there are a few, like, I think GWs might be a little out of my league for right now, only because I'm I only say that because I have a tendency with GW models in particular to control that. Oh, I should have did it with a smaller brush. Yeah, I'm gonna have to do a little. I'm probably gonna have to do a little bit of reimagining of some of his muscles. I can actually start doing that now. Yeah, typically when I have a muscled character like this, what I'll do is I'll go back in. So this goes back to that comment I made earlier about darkening colors. You're going to start to see me go back in. Move that to the side. You're going to see me start to go back in, and I'll bring out the muscles so it doesn't look so splotchy. Unfortunately, I think I said it earlier, when I did prime these guys, and in general, my priming has been really tough because I don't have a spray booth in my house that I can use for, spraying models, which if things change and, you guys continue to support me and like what I'm doing, I'm probably going to invest in doing some of those things. Some of the things I want to do in the future as I get my studio. I would love to also do like 3D printing and some other stuff. I'm using the wrong color. But I don't have a spray booth, so it gets a little tough. Because when I have to prime, I have to spray my models outside. And if the weather is not cooperating, which for at least me, and I realize now I may be talking to some folks. If you're living in Texas or out in those parts, I'm super sorry for everything you guys are going through. But because it's just crazy. I still can't believe that. Being from the Northeast, obviously cold temperatures and winterizing and all that stuff are things that are very second nature to me. And I don't even, I didn't even fathom that it wasn't just part of engineering to make things that way, but it makes sense. You do have to pay more to do that. But again, would have thought something governmental or whatever would warrant that, especially like infrastructure things. Because yes, I get it. It's not a maybe weather that you never deal with, but it's kind of crazy to say in a way, like you never deal with that. Like anyone can deal with anything, and that's one thing I've learned in life. Like you can't walk around saying, "Oh, well, this is never going to happen," because nobody can predict what's going to happen. In the world, anything can happen. As if we all haven't learned that by now, like. Who would ever thought we'd be in the predicament we're in, So, that's crazy to me. That, like, there's a world where, like, people... I mean, obviously the bigger part of it is that there's a world out there where somebody thought it was okay to, like, not help people, which that's its own bag of just wrong. You just like people are not worth the time or money, and that's a terrible place to be. That's why I always say when I end all of these videos, it's where that's where the respect each other comes from, and like making sure that we all take care of of anyone, no matter who they are or what they are, or what they are. If they're an alien, please take care of them. Um, you know, if you meet someone from Zalaki 5, you make sure you take care of them. No. Um, it's why we need to we need to think about the people around us, you know? You know, cuz all of us can, you know, I think what people never realize, and I don't want to be too preachy, and I think I'm starting to become a little preachy, and I'm also letting, I think the music is starting to get to me a little bit too. It's very fitting, but the idea is that you know, I think we all don't realize that we can all have a bad day. I think that's the way to think about it. Yeah, like that I'm gonna have to fix because that just splotched. Like, you know, everyone on the planet, and I think we as human beings don't realize that all the time, is that anybody's day can get bad, and it can turn from bad to, like, it's amazing how you can start a day one way and it can totally flip on you, and all it takes is one different moment for you to you know, just learn about something, or now be part of something that you yourself, you know, you might have said to yourself, even in like passing to somebody else, like, oh, I don't think that could ever happen to me, or I don't think I could ever be like that. And you'd be surprised how fast life can show you that you know, just because you think it can't happen doesn't mean it can't. And you know, now you're gonna have to deal with that, and figure out a way to endure it, or whatever that is. And you know, so don't ever make you think that life. Yeah, I'm gonna fix that real quick because that's gonna bother me. That it happened. Yeah, I don't know why it just like clumped up on that hand. Yeah, before I do the rest of the but you guys can see I'm just going in there with a little bit more of the color just to darken those muscles so we can make these muscle structures. You can see how much better that muscle definition looks when I do that. But like I said, I got just some, I guess I was a little heavy-handed with the contrast, and I didn't, you know, you got with contrast paint, you got to worry about pooling, and if it pools like too much, then you get stuff like that. So there's a really easy fix for it, which is you just take some white, and we can just like, so what you're gonna see me do is I'm just gonna whiten back over this area. So I'm gonna whiten over, you know, where the where that splotch was, and then we'll be able to I'll just go over it with the yellow, and you'll see it'll turn into a nicer, lighter shade, so that we don't have this like sort of skin burn condition that he's got. And like I said, guys, while you're watching, if you guys have questions or comments, just gonna fade that a little bit more. Not gonna go crazy, but I'm just gonna fade that so that I can clean up those areas, and then we'll put some more yellow on there. And that's what I like about the contrast too. You can literally just take something as basic as white and just go in there and you know, just use it to lighten. Like, I'm gonna correct something I did over there. So it's almost like, if you think of it, it's like using I always say to people, it's like using whiteout on paper. Like if you make a mistake, you just white it out. It's kind of the same thing. And then you can just sort of hide those little things. You go very light, and you'll see why. Because when I go back in to fix it, it's going to, it will, it's not going to look, it's going to still look like the white's there, but it'll lighten the tone there. So I try to be very, very specific so I can try to just get that yellow back in there. So I'll just fix that because I'm like, ooh, I noticed. Same thing. Well, we'll see. But like same thing here. Like this isn't gonna make sense with the muscle tone. You know how I want to do it. So I'm just gonna like do a little bit there. I'll probably do a little bit more up there. And let's go back to doing some bone stuff, and I'll let that white dry. So I can go back to, because he's got these like, you know, like not bone, but you know what I mean, like he's got these ridges where he's got like hard like ramming stuff, because White Dwarf is a really powerful guy. I love the Marvel Crisis Protocol models. I think they're so well done. And I don't know, and I was going to say, for folks that haven't watched WandaVision, I was going to talk a little bit about it, because it's, of course, very fitting, because we're doing Marvel Crisis Protocol stuff. But it would be, you know, there are definitely some characters that have been brought to life on that show that I really would love if they entered into the world of this game. But we'll see. And for folks that don't know, and definitely go read some comics if you're not familiar with it. But you know, there is everything you're seeing on that show. There is actual comic book evidence of it happening. It's a little bit different. They went a different route with it, as Marvel does. They do, you know, Marvel will do that very often. They will, you know, like kind of blend storylines. So they'll take a few different elements and blend it together to make and I think that's it's a really good way to do it, because if they were to just take the comic book story for face value, they you know, we would all, like, if you read a comic book, or if you even, you know, just in your own inkling decided, oh, this seems pretty cool, I want to go like find out more about it. Well, if they did it exactly the way the comic book did it, then it would turn into you not really being surprised at the movie, because you'd be like, oh, I already know the twist. I already know what's going to happen. So I like that they blend storylines together. Now, of course, if you are a very big Marvel fan, you know that also some of the reasons why things are blended, you know, revolves around the fact that they didn't have the rights to things at the times they made the movies. So that's why we got like slightly different things than maybe the comic book. So that is a real thing. You know, there were, you know, that's why we didn't get like kind of proper X-Men or mutants, because at the time Fox owned all the rights to all that stuff. But now, of course, Disney has acquired Fox, so, which don't think by any means that Disney was not you know, waiting in the wings to do that, because I said that ever since Disney got Marvel, I'm like, give it, you know, everyone was so panicked. Well, I mean, people were panicked for a lot of reasons, but I'm like, just give Disney time. They'll get all those characters back. So like I had no you know, shock to me that like Disney got the the mutants back, Fantastic Four back. They got all those rights back. So I was like, basically, it's going to go down one or two ways. Either these companies, I mean, it just so happened that what's happening to a lot of entertainment companies is that, they just weren't making the content to keep themselves afloat. So, so a lot of them just kind of went, all right, well, we got to sell off our stuff. Again, very similarly how Marvel got in the first place in the trouble it did, where, they were doing badly, got rid of everybody, and then realized, oh, so if we were to have just kept the rights and we were to have just made everything ourselves, we would have made so much money. Because at that time, people forget when they sold off Spider-Man that it was not really a perceived thing that comic book movies could generate the money that they do. So people didn't think comic book movies would actually work, because up until that point they didn't. So like most comic book movies, with the exception of a few here and there, they were not successful to the level of and specifically Marvel. DC was a whole different ballgame. DC had a lot of success, which is kind of funny to say that, because now, of course, I don't think anyone on the planet would say that they're having success with their movies. And again, if you are a DC fan and you love their movies, then I'm sorry if that makes you mad. But but I can tell you that it's funny to me, because it's just they were outmanning Marvel a lot, which is part of why Marvel was just like, hey, to get some revenue into our company, to get ourselves into a better spot, let's sell movie rights, let's sell TV rights, let's sell all this stuff. So yeah, they were kicking their butt. They really were, because they had a lot of success, and they are part of the reason that Marvel thought it was a good idea, because they had dominated the box office, and Marvel just didn't think that they were going to be able to compete. Because you have to remember, that's things like the Christopher Reeve Superman movies, the original Jack Nicholson, Michael Keaton Batman. Like, those were the kinds of movies that were coming out from DC at that time. So these are like pretty iconic films, and quite frankly, great movies. So that's what their competition was. So nobody wanted to open against that, and have to deal with that. So they were very much so it's so to me, it actually is kind of a funny juxtaposition, because at that time they were killing it. They were taking them to town. And it's just funny how the tables have turned wholeheartedly. The tables have very much turned. Oh, thank you for the follow. I saw that. I saw you. No, thank you so much for following. So I guess that means that I'm interesting enough. No, just kidding. Like I said, we're going to be painting a lot of other stuff. So I know I'm doing the Marvel Crisis Protocol stuff, but I'll be painting, Mantic stuff, Games Workshop stuff. So all manner of tabletop and wargaming things, and some really cool models. I'm also gonna do a lot of model reviews of some independent folks out there. I have another couple of models I got that were really fun. I'll do a full review on those, and we'll take a look at them, and then we'll obviously see the painting of them too. And if you guys want, I know I'm marketing this as a painting video, but if you guys find the conversation fun, it could be more like a paint and talk, because we'd always talk about the thing that we're talking about. So, because I know I'm doing a lot of Marvel, obviously talking about a lot of Marvel related things, whether it's TV or comic books. Because if you guys didn't know, part of my reason for getting into Marvel Crisis Protocol is I'm a huge comic book fan and an avid comic book collector. So I am very well versed in all of the characters that are in said games. And if nothing else, I just love the it's just awesome, the models, like just to own the models. And obviously, like, even if the game totally tanked after a while or wasn't there, I would just keep all the models and display them and have them. But I don't think that's going to happen, because the game is actually a lot of fun. The game is a lot of fun. What I love about Marvel Crisis Protocol, if you're not a familiar person to it, is that I just love how accurate they made the game. Like, it's so it's what it's got going for it is it's the type of game I always say, which is it has simple mechanics, but when you get good at the game, you can take those simple mechanics and do some truly interesting, cool stuff with it. Like, just the rules that they have in this game are insane. Like, one of the things I love about this game, and I say it all the time, so for folks that are like repeat viewers of the show, I apologize if I seem like I am seem like I might be repeating myself, but I just love their whole way in which they do terrain, how you can throw stuff, so they have rules for throwing terrain at people, throwing objects at people, but then they also have what they also have, which is insane, is they have rules for like people hitting into things. So like, because when you start talking about the concept or idea of throwing stuff, and you start talking about the actual concept of like those mechanics, what you find is you actually you're using powers to throw stuff into each other. So like, you're using Spider-Man's power of web slinging to pick up that garbage pail and throw it into another combatant. Like, you're using, so it's this idea that you're using those powers in unique ways to do that. All right, so what I'm gonna have to do, oh, I see what happened. Oh, it's like very faded. Okay, probably just gonna have to, I want to go light. I'm trying to go like so light with the paint. All right, So what we're going to do is we're going to make a little adjustment just so it looks a little bit more natural. Yeah, sometimes my trick doesn't always work. And the reason why it doesn't work is this is actually an issue with the priming. That's why you're seeing this variation of color. Alright, so I'm going to have to figure out a different route for that. So what I might have to do is I might have to do, and you'll see it, like the prime is darker on this side. Oh, so it can be a little bit different. All right, hold on guys 1 second. I may have to go for a brief second and I'll come back. There's a little guest that's trying to make their way, and I have to go talk to them. But I will be back in a moment. Thank you guys for the follows and subscribing. If you can, check out the links below. I will be back very, very shortly for another installment of this. I want to keep painting, give you guys a little bit more painting tonight, and then we'll do also another video of just some gameplay stuff, which I wanted to do as well. But I'll fix this model and get us in better shape. So I'll be right back, about 10 minutes, 20 minutes. And then we'll see what we're going to do next. All right, so come on back, sign up for notifications, sign up for the channel, and follow if you like what you heard and like what you saw. And we'll be painting a lot more stuff. And you could also check out my website, my Patreon, and the tip/donation button for monetary support of the channel. It always helps. It gets me what I need for the models and to do things a little differently and to go further. And as always, please wash your hands, stay safe, and respect all the people of this planet, because without all of us working together, we're never going to figure out the problems of tomorrow. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you in a minute. Bye-bye.